this is what I'm loving seeing online with this hashtag, is how everyone around the nation is making this launch uniquely theirs. And I want to point out one line in her post that says, I believe that no matter how far the future is, we are on our way towards it. And guys, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's what today represents. Let's take another look. Oh my goodness. Okay, so right now we have Jessica with her space pup getting ready for liftoff. And guys, I'm not gonna lie, we love to see it. So please, if you have any space pets, comment using hashtag #LaunchAmerica. As you can see, everybody is thrilled to be a part of this launch today, and I know of one special guest in particular. I'm so pleased to welcome Diana Cohort of Physics Girl. Diana, I hear you have a burning question for Mission Control, so go for it.
Hi, Tahira. Thank you so much for including me on this incredibly special day. I'm Diana from the YouTube channel Physics Girl, and I've always been so fascinated by space and especially space exploration because we bring together so many people for such a complicated task to send a rocket up into space. So my question is along the lines of what goes into a mission like that? What we all know, I think we're familiar with how much preparation and training astronauts have to do, but preparing for a mission like this and maybe preparing in the future for a mission to the moon or to Mars, what kinds of things does the whole team have to do in order to prepare to launch a rocket?
So Diana, that is such a great question because, I mean, sometimes I think it does get overlooked what all goes into making a moment like this happen. So Gary, what has the team there in Mission Control been doing to prepare for this historic launch?
Thanks, Tahira. And Diana, that's a fantastic question. Really, the operations here are not just starting today. There has been a lot of training and a lot of simulations that have been going into preparing for this moment. Really preparing and getting everyone familiarized with every step of the mission, from launch all the way through docking, and throwing different scenarios at them just in case something were to happen. Every flight controller you see behind me will be prepared to respond effectively. Now, I do want to make a shout out that it's not just the flight controllers here in Mission Control Houston that have dedicated so much time to this launch. In fact, I've been talking to Zeb Scoville, the flight director here in Mission Control Houston, who said that even before he was a flight director back in 2014, they were working on some of the operations for commercial crew missions. But really, this team expands across the country. You've already seen a lot of people working in Hawthorne, in Florida, in Houston, and really it takes an integrated and dedicated team to make a mission like this possible. Diana, thank you so much for the question. And really thanks to everyone sending in questions and for sharing in this historic mission today. Remember, as you're posting, to use the hashtag #LaunchAmerica. I do want to make a shout out to the flight controllers here in Mission Control Houston. In fact, some traditional flowers have been sent to Mission Control Houston. This dates even back before the shuttle days for every mission to dedicate it to the operations and the controllers here who are working so closely and are integrated in every part of the mission. But now let's head over to Hawthorne for the latest status on the crew and on Dragon. Dan.
All right, thank you, Gary. As you can see, Bob and Doug in a little bit different position now. Their suits have been rotated to the launch position. So this just puts their backs a little bit more horizontal with the ground itself, or parallel with the ground itself, and places those displays directly in front of them. We've also already moved into suit leak checks, so this is the second time they've had these leak checks done in their suit. So pressurized nitrox now flowing into those launch and entry suits that they're going to be wearing throughout the dynamic phases of this mission. So right now we are under 2 hours and 20 minutes from launch. We're about 2 hours and 18 minutes and counting from liftoff of the Falcon 9 from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. It's going to be carrying our NASA crew members today, Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken, aboard SpaceX's Dragon spacecraft. It's been a really exciting day so far. We're fighting against that weather, but we're continuing to press on for launch. The crew has been up since about 6 a.m. as they prepare to head to the International Space Station for part of this Demo 2 mission for NASA.
Yeah, and as you can see on your screen, it looks like they're just waiting and getting ready for this mission today. It's been such an exciting day so far. Again, as Dan said, their seats are rotated into launch position so that they can see those screens that you see there on the left side right in front of them. Their suit leak checks have been complete. Their comm checks are complete. So let's throw it over to Lauren in KSC.
All right. So Dragon Hatch close is expected at T-1 hour and 55 minutes, and we are just pretty close to that. It's getting really, really close. So this is one of the the final key visual milestones on that timeline to lift off, the closure of that hatch and locking Bob and Doug inside. Now, we have a couple of special guests joining us with Daryl at the OSB-2 viewing location. That's NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine and SpaceX Chief Engineer Elon Musk. Daryl?
That's right, Lauren. We're here on the 5th floor. We were supposed to be outside on the balcony overlooking pad 39A, but we have come indoors due to the weather. But we are here with two titans of space. And though it might look like this is a reunion of a 90s boy band, it is not. We are socially distanced for good reason. But we are here to talk about space. And I want to thank you both and tell you both it's a privilege and honor to be with you today. We're going to start off with you, Jim, and ask you a couple questions here. I want to ask you, first of all, it's been almost 3 years that you were sworn in as NASA Administrator, and you knew from the very first day that you would be right here at the Kennedy Space Center in this moment when a commercial partner was ready to launch. Tell me what it's like to be leading NASA at this very moment.
So I want to be clear. I did not know that when I got sworn in. I will tell you, a lot of folks said it couldn't be done. But of course, as soon as I got the job, Elon and I have had a number of conversations. Elon committed that this was something that SpaceX could achieve. We've had challenges. We've had setbacks. We've seen catastrophic losses of capsules and challenges with parachutes. What's that? On the ground, uncrewed. I want to be really clear. Tests. But that's what's unique about SpaceX. SpaceX can do things that NASA historically has not done. They test, they fail, they fix, they fly, they test, they fail, they fix, they fly, until the point where we are today, where not only is SpaceX comfortable, but NASA is comfortable. We are ready to go. But if you would have told me even 2 years ago we'd be right here, I might have even been questioning it then. But this is a monumental achievement. It's a Herculean task by the SpaceX team, which we're very grateful for, and also by the NASA team that has been working hand in glove with them to get to this point.
And it's good we have Jim and Elon both here to fact check each other, so that's good. Thank you for that. Elon, in 2002, when you started SpaceX, many in the aerospace industry didn't take SpaceX seriously. You remember what that felt like. Yet here you are. You just sent 2 astronauts in a car made by your car company to launch pad 39A with a spacecraft made by your space company. And now they're launching the International Space Station. So I'm wondering for you, in this moment, do you just pinch yourself thinking, is this really happening?
This is a dream come true, I think, for me and everyone at SpaceX. This is not something that I ever thought would actually happen. So when starting SpaceX in 2002, I really did not think this day would occur. I expected 90% chance we'd fail to even get to low Earth orbit with a small rocket. So somebody told me in 2002 that I'd be standing here with the NASA administrator, meeting the astronauts, and we've got a rocket and spacecraft on pad 39A, the best pad in the world, which is it's an honor to be there. I would have thought, man, I don't know what you're smoking, but it's not. like no way is that true. You know, and so it is. Today it's even a dream come true. I didn't even dream that this would come true. Let me put it that way. You know, but it is. I am incredibly excited to be here on behalf of the SpaceX team. And as Jim said, this really is the culmination of an incredible amount of work by the SpaceX team, by NASA, and by a number of other partners in the process of making this happen. It's really, you can look at this as the results of 100,000 people, roughly, when you add up all suppliers and everyone working incredibly hard to make this day happen. So it's really hard to believe that this is real.
And you're here, and it's amazing, and many of us have been amazed as we've watched you accomplish these things over the years. Jim, back to you. This is all about the commercialization of space. And so in the early going for commercial crew program, it wasn't something NASA was used to. Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, Shuttle. NASA gave the designs and the contractors went out there and built it. This is different.
It is.
They're building it now. What were some of the hurdles that you had to overcome to get to this point?
Well, I think getting people to recognize that when the government provides both the demand and the supply, you're limited in what you're able to do. And of course, back when this program was initiated under Charlie Bolden, General Charlie Bolden, astronaut Charlie Bolden, Congress was not supportive and did not provide the proper funding. And yet he persevered. He pushed forward. And now I think everybody recognizes we have to commercialize space. We've had success now with commercial resupply of the International Space Station. Now we've got commercial crew to the International Space Station. Eventually we need commercial space stations. So what we're using the International Space Station for right now, we're proving that we can compound pharmaceuticals in a way that you cannot do on Earth. We're able to create immunizations in a way you cannot do on Earth. We're printing human organs in 3D. Right now it's just tissue, but eventually we're going to print human organs in 3D using adult stem cells, your skin cells, your own DNA. It's going to transform how we do medicine here on Earth. We're creating advanced materials that you can only create in the microgravity of space, things like an artificial retina for the human eye. So if you have macular degeneration, you don't have to lose your eyesight. Bottom line is this: these markets are the future. And when they materialize, and they are materializing because of the work of NASA, we're going to see capital investment, not just into launch, but also into habitation. And that ultimately is what's going to be transformational for commercial space.
Very good. And Elon, in getting all of that going, the ISS and all the activity that takes place on board, it's key that this Crew Dragon operate on a regular basis. As the chief engineer, yes, what were some of the biggest hurdles you had to overcome to get your spacecraft ready to fly this mission?
Well, the spacecraft and the rocket have gone through literally thousands and thousands of tests and reviews, both by SpaceX, by NASA, by third parties. We've also, as Jim was alluding to, we've done a lot of flights. So one of the things I think that's very helpful about this flight, about what we're about to do, is that the rocket has flown many times. In fact, even in this, essentially this configuration, it's flown about 20 times. So that means we really have, I don't want to tempt fate, but a well-proven rocket. And we've flown Crew Dragon to the space station once, successfully brought it back. We've done a tremendous amount of testing on the ground, and when we do the testing on the ground, you always push the limits. So you want to try, you push it way beyond what you'd expect in flight. So sometimes you break it because you kind of want to break it on the ground during testing to see what the limits are. So this is a result, like I said, of thousands of tests, of thousands of design hours, and a tremendous number of smart people working incredibly hard to make this day happen.
And you've got 2 astronauts on board now. Yes. Do you feel that responsibility?
Yes, absolutely. I felt it, I think, most strongly when I saw their family just before coming here.
And did you say anything that you can share?
So we've done everything we can to make sure your dads come back okay.
Thanks for sharing that with us. Jim, you had some words with the astronauts. What was your take on how they were feeling?
I will tell you, Doug Hurley, Marine Corps test pilot, of course, veteran of multiple space shuttle missions. Bob Benkin, flight test engineer, United States Air Force, again, veteran of multiple space shuttle missions. This is not new to these guys. All I could do is convey to them how much all of America appreciates what they're doing, that the entire world is watching, and just how grateful we are as a nation. And I will tell you, their demeanor is loose. They are ready to go. They were joking around. They're talking about what they had for breakfast and how it might come up later. It was
steak and eggs. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Right. So it was nice to see. They are in their element, and we are just so grateful and proud of them.
Well, that's good to hear. That gives you great confidence, I'm sure, in your positions as you hear that. We're going to go to a social media question, and we've got this question coming from Brooklyn. And she wants to know, I noticed some changes in the crew spacesuits. They look much thinner and lighter. What changes in the space capsule allow to have these futuristic suits?
Well, we spent a lot of time designing the spacesuit. I personally spent a lot of time on the spacesuits. It took us 3, almost 4 years to design suits that both look good and work well. So you can see a spacesuit in the movie, looks good, doesn't work. and then you can make a spacesuit that works but doesn't look good. Because fundamentally it's a pressure suit that's got to survive in vacuum.
Right.
So it's so it tends to puff up, when it's under pressure, and it's got to handle all that pressure. So it took us many iterations to get the suit to. We really wanted to look great. Fundamentally, what it's about is like we want to inspire kids to say that one day they want to wear that uniform. They want to wear that spacesuit, and get them fired up about, I want to be an astronaut. I want to work on aerospace engineering. I want to advance space flight. And I think what today is about is reigniting the dream of space, and getting people fired up about the future and excited. It's just one of those things that I think everyone. From all walks of life, from all parts of the political spectrum, in the United States and elsewhere, should be really excited that this is a thing that is made by humans, for humans, and it's just a great, exciting, inspiring day, and it's one of those, like I said, one of those things that makes you glad to wake up in the morning.
Yeah. Functional and inspiring. And there's one on a model right over there, and you got me so excited. I might run over there and put that thing on, Elon.
Yeah. They're custom tailored, by the way. I think you won't fit in that one, but we could make one that you would fit in.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, because I'm 6'8", so you're gonna have to do a lot of sewing.
Well, and the Dragon spacecraft can take someone who's 6'8".
My size.
Yes.
This commercial thing, I'm getting excited.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm ready to fly, Jim.
Yeah.
Sir. We've got another social media question we're going to ask. Ashton J wants to know, how do you think that launching astronauts on American soil for the first time since 2011 will revolutionize future missions?
Yeah, so what we're doing here is unlike anything we've ever done before. We are not purchasing, owning, and operating the hardware. We are turning to commercial industry. And going back to the spacesuits, it's the same for the capsule, it's the same for the rocket. We did not tell industry what to build. We gave them top-level requirements. We said, here's the requirement for payload. Here's the requirement for safety. And then we let the innovators, commercial industry, American commercial industry, innovate. And they came up with solutions that had never been dreamed of before. And that's the success of this program. So we're really revolutionizing how we do spaceflight. And I really think when we look into the future, we're going to see these models of doing business with public-private partnerships apply not just to low Earth orbit, which is what we're doing today, but we're taking this model to the moon and even onto Mars.
And I hear something about Tom Cruise shooting a movie at the International Space Station. Is that right?
I'll tell you what I told Elon just yesterday, and that is this. People ask me about Tom Cruise all the time now, and the answer is yes. We would love Tom Cruise to fly to the International Space Station and make a movie. I'm all for that, and we're going to do what we can to make that happen. But you should know this. There was a day when I was in elementary school and I saw the movie Top Gun. And from that day, I knew that I was going to be a Navy pilot. It's just the way it was. The goal here, and this is what we're doing today.
Exactly.
And Elon is all about this.
Get the kids fired up about wanting to wear that spacesuit,
That's exactly
wanting to fly that, go to orbit, go to the moon, go to Mars, reigniting the dream of space, and just getting people of all walks of life, young, old, excited about the future. Excited. I think anyone who has within them the spirit of exploration should love what's going on today.
And if we can get Tom Cruise to inspire an elementary kid to join the Navy and be a pilot, why can't we get Tom Cruise to inspire the next Elon Musk? That's what we need. We need a new generation of many Elon Musks, and that's what this launch is about today. I want to say, speaking of this inspiration piece, it's not by chance that we have the Secretary of Education of the United States of America here. This is all about the next generation. If we have great success in our generation, it's not enough. It has to continue. The challenge with the Apollo program is that it ended. What we're doing now is sustainable, and that's why we have the public-private partnerships and commercial capabilities that are coming online.
Very good. And the good news for Tom Cruise is he does a lot of his own stunts.
Yeah.
So in zero gravity, he should get hurt a lot less.
I think it's going to be super cool.
Yeah.
And as Joe said, it's like this is going to, you want to capture the public imagination, have them see cool things happening in real orbit, real space stations. It's like, I think I'd want to watch that movie. You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, like I said, you think this is really just the beginning, because we want to go from low Earth orbit, we want to go back to the moon, and the moon to stay, have a moon base, like Moon Base Alpha, and have build a city on Mars and be a spacefaring civilization out there among the stars. This is a super exciting future that I think that's the kind of thing where you're like, yeah, can't wait for it to happen, you know?
If you can't get excited after listening to you guys, I'd say you need to have your pulse checked.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, SpaceX CEO and Chief Engineer, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jim Bridenstine, we appreciate you leading NASA in this time, Administrator for the agency. And we're going to send it back to Marie.
All right, thanks a lot, Daryl. We saw in the meantime, while that interview was going on, the hatch actually closed. So that happened a few minutes earlier than we expected to. Our timeline has that happening at T-minus an hour and 55 minutes. So a few minutes ahead of schedule right now with hatch closed. And you can see the pad teams there just working on things now.
Yeah, right now it looks like what they're doing is, what are they doing? So they perform a leak check. There's a mechanism there called a side hatch mechanism. That is what actually closes the hatch and seals it. And what we'll do is perform a leak check on that for a few minutes to make sure that that's nice and tight, that those O-rings are sealed really, really well. And after that, we will install the, you can see the leak check ground support equipment there in the technician's hands there.
And while we're watching this, Leland, I mean, we just heard them talk a lot about inspiring the next generation. And you're a man of many talents. I know after your flights yourself, you used to have the head of NASA education. I mean, what did that stir up in you?
You know, Marie, what Elon said about reigniting the dream of space is so important, that we get our young kids thinking about themselves being in these seats. And when I first became an astronaut in 1998, I was riding on the back of a fire truck celebrating John Glenn's return to flight on a space shuttle. And I saw these two little kids. They had on orange pumpkin suits. And when their dad turned them around to look at me on the fire truck. And it was almost as though when they saw my face, they started launching into space with rocket fuel because they were inspired, because they saw someone who looked like them. And I think that if we can reignite this dream through SpaceX's launch, through the partnership with NASA, we can get so many more kids to believe in themselves and know that they can be just like Doug and Bob flying on the SpaceX Dragon.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really just breathtaking to see them there in their suits now and looking at the screens in front of them. Lauren, I know we've talked a lot about the spacecraft. We've heard about that. But for folks that maybe are just tuning in, what are they looking at in front of them now?
Yeah, so they have 3 different touch screens in front of them. Overall, that whole assembly there is called the control panel. So you'll have those 3 LCD touch screens in front of them where they have, the displays are showing them details on the vehicle's pressure, its temperature, there's audio control. That center screen has the procedures that they're going through today on day of launch. You can also see the vehicle's attitude. You can see its velocity, its apogee, its perigee, its inclination, details on the status of the hatch, the thermal control system loops, basically all the cool stuff that helps them have situational awareness of the vehicle. That's displayed on those displays. Additionally, there are some actual buttons on that button panel that you see down below. And some of the things that allow them to do is if the crew ever needed to do any sort of manual overrides like that, right in the middle, right underneath that center LCD screen, that's the crew's ability to initiate an abort. It's called an abort handle, and it's right in the middle where both crew members could use it if they needed to. And the audio controls are also on those button panels. When they're not in their suits, there's actually speakers that are coming off of the control panel that allow them to hear mission control, hear the core, hear ISS, when they're not in their suits where the audio systems are integrated into that.
And we see them using the touch screens now. Leland, what's your take on this? Because this has got to look totally different from what you were looking at during shuttle.
Touch screens, we had these displays and these buttons, and it was one of those moments when I'm looking at this now when I had knee boards that had procedures and things on there, and the procedures are now all run in that middle screen, and the malfunctions and the things that you do to mitigate problems with the vehicle if something happens, it's all controlled right there with the two of them. And so it's a radical departure from what we did with the shuttle, but it's again ushering in this new era of space travel.
For post-ingress brief and a check on how that suit air feels about now.
And we're going to listen now for an announcement
We're ready.
about hatch closer.
Copy. Well, today we are not tracking any issues on Dragon and F9 currently. For a weather update, the weather line that is overhead, which is what you saw when you were ingressing, is now moving offshore. The next radar return is a cell over Orlando, which is expected to be our decision gate for today, and that is currently eroding.
That's good news. Thank you.
Copy. And then one additional item, the Cabo, the orbit site, remains as briefed, so no change there. But I do want to make you aware that that is slightly west of Cabo for go weather. So you just want to target the longitude if needed.
Okay, Dragon copy, slightly west. We'll target the longitude, and the suit air has cooled off, so we appreciate that as well.
Copy. Outstanding. Let us know if you have any questions, and we'll keep you posted as the closeout team completes the leak check.
Dragon copy.
So what we actually heard was a little bit more discussion about the weather, still looking at things, and we're about a minute away from an announcement about hatch closure. Excuse me. If you're just joining us, we're at T-minus 1 hour, 55 minutes and counting, and we're expecting an announcement to confirm hatch closure in just a few seconds.
Dragon, SpaceX, for comm checks with Falcon 9.
Go ahead.
Okay, we are ready for that at that time, if you are ready.
We are ready.
All stations up on countdown net for section 54.49, F9 responsible engineer, communication check with the crew. Start with guidance, navigation, and control.
Dragon, GNC on countdown 1, comm check.
GNC, Dragon, loud and clear.
GNC, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check by the propulsion engineer.
Dragon, prop on countdown 1, comm check.
Prop, Dragon, loud and clear.
Prop, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check with the avionics engineer.
Dragon, avionics on countdown 1, comm check.
Avionics, Dragon, we have good loud and clear.
Avionics, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check with the ground segment engineer.
Dragon, ground segment on countdown 1, comm check.
Ground segment, Dragon, loud and clear.
Ground segment, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check by launch control.
Dragon, launch control on countdown 1, comm check.
Launch control, Dragon, loud and clear.
Launch control, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check by the chief engineer. Dragon, chief engineer on countdown 1, comm check.
Fala, Dragon has you loud and clear.
Chief engineer, loud and clear. This completes the F9 responsible engineer comm checks. Dragon, chief engineer on Dragon to ground.
Go ahead, sir.
I was just doing a comm check on this loop. Good luck, guys, and buckle in.
Thanks to you and the F-19, Bala. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bala.
So we just heard a series of comm checks there, and Lauren, I don't know if you want to describe a little bit more about why that's important, and we heard the acronym GNC. They said guidance, navigation, and control really quickly, and then went back to the acronym GNC. Can you kind of explain to folks what that means?
Yeah, the launch chief engineer, Bala, as you heard them thanking him towards the end, initiated a comm check with all of the different subsystems that those engineers that are on console and those operators today, and talking with the crew, making sure that they were able to communicate with them bidirectionally, and just handing that check off from all of the different stations on console today. That was really, really cool. We obviously don't do that when there's a satellite on top of the rocket, so this is the first time for a real flight that we've done that operation. It's very awesome.
And now that the hatch is closed, a lot of the work of this team is done, but I mean they're obviously not finished. They're not ready to leave the white room just yet. You were talking to some folks about what's going on in this room now.
Yeah, that's right. They should be completing the hatch leak check. That's you sort of pressurize that area between, there's two O-rings that are there, and we want to pressurize that area, see if it holds pressure. It's a very, very sensitive test, very high criteria for passing. And so once that leak check is shown to be okay, and that the capsule or that those O-rings are able to hold pressure, what the team will do is they'll go back into that area, into that access panel, and install what we call the SPEP, which is the side pressure equalization plug. Once that is plugged, you've really closed everything up. And when the crew splashes down, what they'll actually do is pull that plug to equalize pressure across the hatch so that you don't cause the hatch to buckle due to a pressure, or sorry, the hatch or the capsule, the weldment, any of the vehicle to buckle due to a pressure differential. So they should be adding that plug, and then they'll cover up that side hatch access panel with the TPS panel or thermal protection system panel, close it up, and that'll make sure it stays safe on ascent.
And now, obviously, we're looking at a view from the outside, the top of Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon.
We can confirm a good side hatch leak check.
Dragon copies, good leak check.
And we just heard confirmation of a good leak check. If you're just joining us, you're looking at the Falcon 9 rocket with Crew Dragon sitting on top. Inside that capsule on top are NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley. And we are inside of 2 hours until liftoff, if the weather holds up. There's another stunning aerial view of the crew access arm extended out towards Crew Dragon. That is the final path that the astronauts took to climb aboard Dragon before they strapped into their seats and the hatch closed. And no doubt Bob and Doug are focused on the mission ahead, but you know, we also heard the administrator and Elon Musk talking about how they've been kind of jovial and joking around. And Leland, you kind of mentioned to me during that segment that that's really important.
It really is, Marie. When we were in the vehicle, after we got to this point when the hatch was closed, we were all going back to those moments of our training, you know, when we were going through, ascent and entry training on the shuttle and just different phases of flight that we would be going through. And we would think about some of our instructors who got us there. In our crew notebooks, we would have names of people that were very impactful in making sure that we were perfect in our training.
And that looks like a view of Air Force One. Flying near Launch Pad 39A for a special guest to have a special view of the astronauts on the launch pad. President Trump on board, making his way to Kennedy Space Center to hopefully view a launch at 4:33 this afternoon. And there they are in view of the launch pad, so no doubt he's looking at the window, looking out the window at Bob and Doug on the pad. That's got to be an amazing sight to see from on board Air Force One. And we are at T-minus 1 hour, 46 minutes, 22 seconds and counting from launch. And guys, the last time we actually did a little bit of research when we found out that the president was coming. The last president to witness a launch from here at Kennedy Space Center was Bill Clinton. That was back in October 1998 for STS-95. So it's been a minute.
Okay, and we are about 56 seconds away from the, oh, no, we're not. We have an hour and 56 seconds away. Never mind. Instead, we are 1 hour and 45 minutes away from launch. And Tahira, you are there with the social teams. I bet you are seeing some excitement on all the things we just saw on the screen there.
Hey, Lauren, I mean, like you said, things are really ramping up on social media right now, especially seeing that hatch close and also just watching this flyover happen. We are up to 1.7 million viewers across all of our social media channels. And let's check out what people are saying on Twitter right now. So it looks like we've got more creativity still going on. Some people are crying with pride in Houston, feel it. We even have Elizabeth Banks, who from the Hunger Games. That's awesome. We have more just good luck and well wishes for Bob and Doug across the nation. This has been a constant online today, which is so great to see. More just future astronauts and kiddos getting excited. We even have the band Bastille tuning in for launch. This is awesome. And just looks like more people standing by to witness this historic launch today. And so, guys, on top of what's being said on social media, we've also got a lot of well wishes from everyone across our country showing us what today means in their creative way. So let's take a look at that video.
I am so ready to launch.
Wow, I mean, guys, just look at everybody excited for today's launch. If that doesn't get you pumped, like, come on, let's go. We even got to see astronaut Snoopy in there, which is a personal favorite of mine. I actually have my lucky Snoopy pin here. You probably can't see it, but he is literally my spirit animal. Anyways, guys, get excited. The time is almost here. And with that, let's toss back to Lauren at Kennedy. Lauren.
Thanks, Tahira. Tahira likes the Snoopy. I like the little girl doing the worm. Leland, she wasn't doing the meatball. She was doing the worm.
There's someone out there doing the meatball, I'm sure.
I want to know what that looks like.
No, I don't. I don't. Clearly, this is capturing the attention of people all across the country and the world. So please continue to join the conversation by using the hashtag #LaunchAmerica across Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
And we've had the opportunity to share with you a lot about the SpaceX Crew Dragon vehicle the crew is sitting in right now, a lot about the crew themselves and the significance of today as the official return of human launch capability to American shores. And now we want to turn our attention to where the crew is going, the International Space Station. And for that, let's take you to Mission Control in Houston. Gary?
Thank you, Marie. The International Space Station is an incredible facility whose construction, operation, and ongoing science all these efforts have been made possible by an unprecedented international collaboration. So to tell us more about the space station, we have International Space Station Chief Scientist Kurt Costello with us. Kurt, welcome.
Gary, thank you. It's an amazing day to be here to talk to you about this historic launch to the ISS.
It really is. Now, many viewers may not realize that there is a laboratory that's the size of a football field, 250 miles above the Earth, and that it's been there for nearly 20 years conducting revolutionary science. Can you share with us more about what the space station is and what it's accomplished so far?
Sure, Gary. Over those 20 years, we've conducted over 3,100 experiments on board this space station. Those 3,100 experiments have been done by over 4,100 investigators and represent the work of over 108 regions and countries. The work going on the space station is not only there to help us with our exploration goals for how to go further into space, but also to bring back benefits for Earth and to produce a commercial marketplace in low Earth orbit. All three of these objectives, along with the international cooperation that it took to build such an amazing laboratory in space, are great examples of the objectives of the ISS program.
Kurt, we know that today's mission is critical to providing us with a steady cadence of operational flights. But why is it so important for us to have this capability from a research perspective?
That's a great question. Today's test flight brings us to the beginning of the commercial crew program, a commercial crew program which will raise our occupancy on the U.S. segment of the space station to 4 astronauts. And that 4th astronaut comes as a real premium to doing research on the space station. The tasks don't get particularly more intensive to do systems and maintenance, so that 4th astronaut, that time becomes dedicated to performing more science. In fact, enough time that it will essentially double the amount of crew time we have to perform experiments on board station. The return to U.S. soil also brings us the ability to return samples more quickly and get human samples back down to the ground more quickly as well.
Kurt, you're talking about all this great research, you're talking about scientific experiments, but what would you say to someone who's watching this and thinking, this isn't relevant to me, I'm never going to space, I don't do science? What do you say to those people?
Well, again, one of the focuses is on the ISS benefits for humanity. And for all of us who've been stuck at home during the COVID-19 pandemic, we've been wondering, wouldn't it be nice to have more bandwidth? Why does the internet slow down? Some of the research we're doing on board space station, particularly into Z-band optical fiber, is using the fact that we don't have sedimentation in a microgravity environment to develop new materials that will help us build more perfect fiber optic cables, which will allow us for better bandwidth and lower cost in implementing networks here on Earth. And then if you're not really a tech geek, maybe your interests lie more in human health. And then we have multiple experiments going on to help us develop new drugs, new treatments on board the ISS. Pharmaceutical companies are working on methods that allow us to crystallize proteins in space in a more purified and more standardized method. And this could lead to monoclonal antibody suspensions that we can treat through injection instead of a painful infusion. We also are developing studies into our capability to produce tissues and organs in space. Again, because you don't have sedimentation, there's a capability there to produce more realistic tissues that can someday possibly be used to prevent human disease.
Now, Kurt, I know they have some cargo going up with them, but I understand they plan to bring some science back.
That's right, Gary. A lot of their cargo going up with them are crew supplies and EVA supplies to support them if they have to do EVAs on board. But the cargo they'll be bringing down is science, and it comes from across the spectrum. We have student experiments in seeds that will be returning with the Crew Dragon. We also have a number of experiments that are dependent on their samples returning in frozen lockers on board the SpaceX Dragon to be able to do the science there. Those include rodent research tissues from the National Lab Rodent Research 17 mission, and also our veggie experiments, which are experiments in growing plants in space that will be needed when we go to more distant locations like the Moon and Mars.
International Space Station Chief Scientist Kurt Costello, thank you so much for your time. Let's hear now from one of the next astronauts to fly to station on a Crew Dragon, talking with Marina Jurica. Marina.
Thank you so much. I am so honored to be a part of today's momentous launch. My guest is no stranger to the International Space Station and will return there for the first time in nearly a decade for his third space flight with the Crew 1 launch expected later this year. Having logged 177 days in space from flights on the Space Shuttle Discovery to the Soyuz, JAXA astronaut Soichi Noguchi will have spent more time in space than any of his other crewmates. It is my pleasure to welcome him here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us, Soichi. Honjitsu wa arigato gozaimasu.
Wow, that's wonderful. Marina, how are you doing? Thanks for having me today. This is wonderful. Today we are celebrating the launch, so I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for being here with us. I am sure you have felt the excitement for today's launch, Soichi, and you will be on the next Crew Dragon flight after this one. Are you excited to launch from Kennedy Space Center again, and how are you preparing for this new vehicle?
Yes, definitely we are excited to go back to Kennedy Space Center. My first space flight was from Kennedy Space Center on the Space Shuttle Discovery. That was 15 years ago, but my memory is still fresh. I still feel the vibration of the launch, the same launch pad of 39A that the demo to go up, and the same launch pad that we will go up as a Crew 1. And our crew is getting ready for the final training phase, which will come in the coming weeks. And the mood is really high, and we are ready to go up.
And as you know, the International Space Station and space exploration is an international effort. How do you feel representing the Japanese Space Agency once again on the ISS?
Well, I think the strength of the International Space Station is the diversity of all the participating countries, and adding diversity is definitely gives a rigidity to the program. And the same applies to our Crew 1. Our Crew 1, we are 4 of us, but quite a different background, quite a different ethnicity, and definitely the diversity is the key word of our success to the Crew 1.
And I'm sure it will be very successful. What are you looking forward to once you get back to the ISS?
Well, this will be my third